definitely link up.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Non-Commissioned Officer Leadership Center of Excellence graduation ceremony of Sergeant's Major Course Class 71. The Resident Sergeant's Major Course is a 10-month program of instruction designed to prepare senior non-commissioned officers for assignments to positions throughout the Department of Defense and partner nations. This year's class consists of 455 students from all components of the United States Army, 41 international students from our partner countries, 7 students from the United States Marine Corps, 2 students from the United States Air Force, and 2 students from the United States Coast Guard. Today, as we graduate Sergeant's Major Course Class 71, the NCO Leadership Center of Excellence will proudly add 507 senior non-commissioned officers to its growing roll of alumni. The members of the official party for today's ceremony are the Commandant of the NCO Leadership Center of Excellence, Command Sergeant Major Jason Schmitt, our guest speaker, the Deputy Commanding General Education, Combined Arms Center, Provost Army University, Deputy Commandant, Command and General Staff College, Major General Don Hill, the Dean of Academics of the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, Dr. James Martin, and Director, Sergeant's Major Academy, Command Sergeant Major David Lee, Jr. Please rise for the entrance of the official party and remain standing for the invocation given by Chaplain Alan Staley and the playing of our national anthem.
Please bow with me in prayer. Mighty warrior, we thank you for these outstanding senior NCOs, the backbone of the Army, coming from across the Army, other branches, and for your role in helping them achieve mission completion in the midst of pandemic in this crucial advanced leadership course. Honor them, Lord, for their discipline and determination, and inspire them as they go forth to advise senior Army leadership and mentor a new generation of NCOs and soldiers. May the relationships they have formed here be a network of camaraderie and support through the rest of their careers and lives. Bless their families, the true backbone, who have supported them through the sacrifices of this year, as well as the dedicated staff of the NCO Leadership Excellence Center who guided them through this journey of transformation. Bless this ceremony and all those present today, in person and virtually. Keep our brothers and sisters in uniform standing watch around the world in your care, and honor the memory of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. We pray this in the name of our leader and sustainer. Amen.
Please be seated. We would like to give a heartfelt welcome to the families, friends, and special guests of the graduating class. The NCO Leadership Center of Excellence is proud to call El Paso home. Throughout their tenure at the center, students of the Sergeant's Major course have historically made significant contributions to this vibrant community through volunteer efforts. Class 71 has continued in that fine tradition. In recognition of the class's outstanding support to the El Paso community, Association of the United States Army presents to the center a scroll which includes the names of each graduate. This scroll will rest alongside the scrolls of all prior classes on the walls of the center's academic wings. Additionally, each student will receive a copy of the scroll as a memento of their time in El Paso. The NCO Leadership Center of Excellence wishes to thank AUSA for this gift. Please join us in welcoming Mr. John Bailey and Command Sergeant Major Schmitt. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Commandant, Command Sergeant Major CSM Schmitt.
So this is a great day for us. Obviously, we've had a very great week of recognizing our Army with a great birthday cake cutting. We got to induct some great and deserving international students into the Hall of Fame, and also some great command sergeants, majors, some legends into our Hall of Fame. Got to recognize our spouses and do some well-deserved frockings for folks that are about to go out and be the force's newest sergeants majors out there, and then ultimately we'll culminate it with today's graduation on 3 turns. So this is a very great day. It's a great day to be a soldier, and it's a great day to be in the Army. and I want to welcome to the graduation ceremony for Class 71. A special thanks to all our distinguished guests in the audience, Major General Hill, who will be joining us virtually here in a few minutes, Dr. Martin, Brigadier, I always mess that up, sir, Cox, Command Sergeant Major Williams, Command Sergeant Major Dyer, Command Sergeant Major Gonzalez, John Bailey, and all other general officers, sergeants majors, officers, non-commissioned officers, soldiers, friends, families, and to those watching on our Facebook Live broadcast, and especially to the families that traveled from afar to witness this graduation ceremony. It is truly a special day, and we're glad you're here to share it with us. Class 71, you've persevered to the SMC during one of the most unique times in the history because of the COVID-19 pandemic. You arrived here under the cloud of quarantine while having to set up new household goods and navigate in-processing with the vague idea of how this would all shake out. You began classes in a blended environment, wearing face masks while constantly being on alert to maintain proper social distancing. Then the order came to move to a 100% virtual environment where you only saw each other on a computer screen and had to find ways to mitigate some of the distractions on the home front. Then we pulled you back into a blended environment where everyone began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Through all the rigor, it was the same as if you would be in the classroom the entire time. You still had papers to write, research to conduct, and a plethora of required reading material. Let us not forget, you still had to maintain your physical fitness and height and weight standards, of which you did an exemplary job. That all led you to this day, graduating in still a somewhat cautious environment, but ready to move on to the next challenge. Through it all, you did what true non-commissioned officers do every day. You adjusted your sights to the target, applied lessons learned, adjusted your sights again, and completed the mission with tenacity and the professionalism we all expect of a NCO cohort such as ours. What have you learned during your experiences at the Sergeant Major's Academy has prepared you for what you will face in your future assignments. It is up to you to take what you have learned during this year and apply critical thinking to your everyday actions. If you treat people with dignity and respect, you will find that mission an easy accomplishment and an easy task. Now I'll spend a few minutes introducing our guest speaker. Major General Don Hill became the Deputy Commanding General Education, Combined Arms Center, Provost Army University, and Deputy Commandant Command and General Staff College on July 2nd, 2020. He was commissioned as an infantry officer through ROTC in 1990 and has served in numerous positions throughout his 31 years of service. His last assignment was Commanding General of the 2nd Security Force Assistant Brigade, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. As the Provost of Army University, General Hill leads a premier learning institution, preparing the best leaders in the world to prepare in multi-domain operations. Army University integrates all of the professional military education institutions within our Army into a single educational structure, modeled after many university systems in our country. Its mission is to provide academic policy, governance, and innovation to enable the Army's academic enterprise to train and educate agile and adaptive soldiers, leaders, and the Army Civilian Corps to achieve cognitive overmatch in complex operational environments. As the Provost, General Hill oversees the Directorate of Academic Affairs, which is responsible for the Faculty and Staff Development Division, Institutional Research and Assessment, and the Instructional Design Division. He oversees distributed learning, credentialing, and continuing education degree producing programs, and much, much more. Through all of this, he's responsible for developing a world-class faculty producing relevant curriculum, adopting nationally recognized standards, improving professional research and publication, growing qualified students, creating an innovative learning environment, and expanding public and private partnerships. He is also responsible for ensuring we maintain our standards of accreditation in the Sergeant Major's Academy as a 4th branch campus of the Commandant and General Staff College. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm round of applause for Major General Don Hill.
Hey, so thanks, Sergeant Major. That's a hell of an intro, and that sounds like a daunting job that I've got in front of me. Some of those outfits, I got to make sure I know what those folks do for me. So I appreciate the lead in. And good afternoon to everyone else, and greetings from Fort Leavenworth. You know, it's really great to be able to talk with all of you all today. Before I go into some really awesome words of wisdom that might actually put some of you to sleep, while everyone's still awake, I want to say congratulations and best of luck to everybody in the future. All of you have distinguished yourselves throughout your careers, and graduating today is another indication of your continued value to our Army and our soldiers. So thanks for all you've done, and thanks for all you will continue to do to make our Army great. And so now we'll get to the speech part of this. More than any class before you, as the intro talked about and as the Sergeant Major talked about, Class 71, you understand the meaning of adaptive leadership. This past year, the COVID pandemic required you to adapt and thrive in a challenging environment. Yet, you remain flexible, accepting constant change as part of the new normal. Your learning environment was fluid, from garages to recreational vehicles, from dining room tables to closets. You embraced a blended learning environment, forming authentic relationships in an increasingly virtual world. Now that you have experienced the unfamiliar through diverse and dynamic challenges, you are prepared to be an agent of change, influencing the course of your organizations, the Army, and the Joint Force. Always forward. More than any class before you, you understand the meaning of resilience. You have experienced the tragic loss of a beloved classmate, Sergeant Major Claudette Williams, and the loss of the much respected Mr. Lamar, a dynamic instructor and mentor from the Department of Command Leadership. Many of you experienced quarantine and isolation, perhaps surrounded by your families, competing for space and for Wi-Fi bandwidth. You have also dealt with travel restrictions, dining restrictions, gathering restrictions, and 8 new versions of the leave form and the dreaded ETP that changed weekly. Yet you endured these hardships, demonstrated resilience, and your winning spirit carried you forward to this moment. Always forward. Class 71 is best described as a uniquely adaptive and resilient team comprised of joint, multi-component, and international team members who made the best possible outcome of an extraordinary year. You selflessly served the El Paso community in numerous ways, from donating time and resources to diaper pantries and food banks, supporting blood drives, and volunteering at a local shelter for women and children. You also dominated the Fort Bliss community on the softball field and the golf course. Many of you participated in the Memorial Bataan Death March, where the Civil Affairs team took home the gold. Most importantly, you came together as a joint force to defeat Atropia. Talk about a resilient enemy. Those guys come back at us every year, so I appreciate you keeping them in their place this year. So your time with the institution is over, and if you think about it, it was really short. Professional military education for our NCOs is only around 5% of your career. Now's the hard part, applying everything you've learned back with the force where we spend the rest of our careers. That's the payoff. Taking everything from the last year and integrating it into your next unit. Understanding those units haven't been standing still while you've been gone. They have also been challenged by the pandemic and have adapted and adjusted how they operate to accomplish the mission. Your roles will be to ensure they maintain the momentum and continue to adapt, to lead by example and not let inertia get in the way of progress, to drive change and build leaders. The backbone of our Army is the NCO Corps, and as the Army moves through the critical transitions of the next decade and beyond, it will be the leadership of the Non-Commissioned Officer Corps that makes those transitions successful. I know all of you are up to the challenge. Again, congratulations to every one of you. Safe travels home or to your next destination, your next assignment, and best of luck in the future. Thanks for letting me talk to you all today. If you need anything from Army University, we're here to support all of you all of the time. Educate to win.
The following senior non-commissioned officers, having successfully completed all requirements set forth by the NCO Leadership Center of Excellence will now receive their diploma. Several will also receive their Bachelor's of Arts degree in Leadership and Workforce Development. We ask that you hold all your applause and cheers until all graduates have been announced. Sergeant Major Lucas P. Collins. Sergeant Major Adalberto Colon, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jose R. Colon. Sergeant Major Jeremy L. Kahn. Sergeant Major Chris L. Cooper. Sergeant Major Neil P. Cooper, BALWD. Sergeant Major Melanie R. Coronado, BALWD. Sergeant Major Leonor Cotto. Sergeant Major Joshua P. Cowan. Sergeant Major Desmond A. Creighton, BALWD. Sergeant Major Brian L. Creed. Sergeant Major Jeffrey B. Creel. Sergeant Major Jeremy D. Crisp. Sergeant Major Dennis R. Cronin. Sergeant Major Brian C. Crook. Sergeant Major Reynaldo J. Cruz Soto. Sergeant Major Donald R. Cullen. Sergeant Major Avery A. Cunningham. Sergeant Major David G. Sear. Sergeant Major Stephen D. Daggett, BALWD. Sergeant Major Andrew S. Dara. Sergeant Major Audrey X. Doherty. Sergeant Major Antonio B. Davis. Sergeant Major Brian A. Davis. Sergeant Major Thomas R. Davis. Sergeant Major James L. Dawson. Sergeant Major Danny R. Castillo, BALWD. Sergeant Major Robert J. DeLira. Sergeant Major Andrew A. DeCola. Sergeant Major Renee L. Delray. Sergeant Major Angel L. Del Valle. Sergeant Major Anthony M. DeLawrence. Sergeant Major Jeremy D. Del Rio. Sergeant Major Tyler M. Denny. Sergeant Major Albert J. Dernberger. Sergeant Major Matthew H. Dine, BALWD. Sergeant Major Scott W. Dentz. Sergeant Major Jesse Dombrowski. Sergeant Major Adolfo F. Dominguez. Sergeant Major Thomas C. Dow. Sergeant Major Michael E. Downing, Iron Pin Award. Sergeant Major Peter Gale Drummond. Sergeant Major Andrew D. Dirksen. Sergeant Major Justin W. Duff. Sergeant Major Larry D. Dunaway, BALWD. Sergeant Major Sean D. Dunlap. Sergeant Major Dustin E. Dunn. Sergeant Major Kenneth D. Dyer, BALWD. Sergeant Major Michael G. Eilers. Sergeant Major Gregory A. Elderkin. Sergeant Major Latanza D. Elliott. Sergeant Major Stephanie L. Ellis. Sergeant Major John D. Emery. Sergeant Major Frank Enriquez. Sergeant Major Brian E. Evans. Sergeant Major Michael P. Evans. First Sergeant Brandon W. Fairbanks. Sergeant Major W. B. Fancer, BALWD. Sergeant Major Kevin R. Favor. Sergeant Major Angelo T. Fazio, BALWD. Sergeant Major Louis Feebles. Sergeant Major Aldagicia A. Fernandez. Sergeant Major Richard C. Fiorucci, BALWD. Sergeant Major Sean P. Fitzgerald. Sergeant Major John P. Folger, BALWD. Sergeant Major Larry H. Forrest. Sergeant Major James R. Fortier. Sergeant Major Richard C. Fortuna. Sergeant Major George L. Foster, BALWD. Sergeant Major Kenneth D. Fox. Sergeant Major Samuel Fuentes. Sergeant Major William J. Fullerton. Sergeant Major Heath B. Gadberry. Sergeant Major Robert J. Garvey, BALWD Iron Pin Award. Sergeant Major Frederick E. Gibbons. Sergeant Major Daniel R. Gibson. Sergeant Major Matthew F. Garrard. Sergeant Major Gerardo T. Godinez. Sergeant Major Antonio Golden. Sergeant Major Paul D. Gomez. Sergeant Major Robert R. Graber, BALWD. Sergeant Major Gerard J. Graff. First Sergeant James K. Gray. Sergeant Major Stephen L. Goodell, Iron Pin Award. Sergeant Major Joseph M. Godleski. Sergeant Major Robert Guerra. Sergeant Major Asane Guy. Sergeant Major Jeffrey A. Guida, Iron Pin Award. Sergeant Major Luis A. Gutierrez. Sergeant Major Ronis J. Gutierrez. Sergeant Major Brenda L. Hollows. Sergeant Major Radu D. Hamilton, BALWD. Sergeant Major Ronald D. Hanson. Master Sergeant Charla A. Hanson. Sergeant Major Kenny P. Hanson. Sergeant Major Julie Harris. Sergeant Major Andre J. Haskins. Sergeant Major Brian P. Hawkins. Sergeant Major James E. Hawkins. Sergeant Major Ryan E. Haynes, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jonathan C. Hainsworth, BALWD. Sergeant Major Donnie P. Hendricks. Master Sergeant Claudia Hernandez Smith, BALWD. Sergeant Major Andre A. Harad, BALWD. Senior Master Sergeant Chastity B. Hurt. Sergeant Major Anthony T. Hill. Sergeant Major James E. Hoffman. Sergeant Major Calnelsa A. Hogue. Sergeant Major Daniel C. Hopkins. Sergeant Major Jason P. Hopkins. Sergeant Major Jeffrey D. Howard. Sergeant Major Daniel J. Hoyt, BALWD. Sergeant Major Daniel W. Huddleston, BALWD. Sergeant Major Travis W. Huggard. Sergeant Major James A. Hubanks, BALWD. Sergeant Major Darius D. Jackson. Sergeant Major Adam W. Jacobson. Sergeant Major Brian L. Jarogowski, BALWD. Sergeant Major David A. Jaquin. Sergeant Major Anderson Jarvis. Sergeant Major Anglade Jean-Francois. Sergeant Major Ryan B. Jeffers. Sergeant Major Tamika L. Jenkins. Sergeant Major James E. Jenner, BALWD. Sergeant Major Sean M. Jerkins. Sergeant Major Benjamin J. Jimenez, BALWD. Sergeant Major Carlos M. Johnson, Sr. Sergeant Major Charles F. Johnson. Sergeant Major Evan Johnson. Sergeant Major George T. Johnson. Sergeant Major Kevin P. Johnston. Sergeant Major Douglas E. Jones. Sergeant Major Jason D. Jones, BALWD. Sergeant Major Roshanae R. Jones. Sergeant Major Tracy L. Jones. Sergeant Major Brandon E. Justice, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jason R. Cack. Sergeant Major Levi D. Kaplan. Sergeant Major Noah Kaib, BALWD. Sergeant Major Joshua M. Kelly. Senior Master Sergeant William D. Kelly, BALWD. Sergeant Major Scott E. Kelsey. Sergeant Major Torrin P. Kern, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jason E. Ketchum, BALWD. Sergeant Major Michael E. Kidd, BALWD. Sergeant Major Lisa M. King. Sergeant Major John J. Kirkpatrick. Sergeant Major Rocky T. Kunkel, BALWD. Sergeant Major Daniel A. Lackman. Sergeant Major Richard C. Lample. Sergeant Major Bradley W. Lanchester, BALWD. Sergeant Major Joel Larabeza. Sergeant Major Joseph M. Larson. Sergeant Major Lumas Laurinaitis. Sergeant Major DeLewis M. Lawrence. Sergeant Major Grant B. Lawrence. Sergeant Major Derek J. Leach, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jordan R. Lee. Sergeant Major Kyle L. Leonard. Sergeant Major Jeffrey D. Leslie. Sergeant Major Kinsky S. Lewis. Sergeant Major Nathaniel Lewis, BALWD. Sergeant Major Alejandro J. Lacia. Sergeant Major Gregory T. Locke, BALWD. Sergeant Major Michelle L. Loftus. Master Sergeant Felipe D. Lopez, BALWD. Sergeant Major Jason A. Lede. Sergeant Major Keita N. Laos. Sergeant Major Alvaro Madrigal. Sergeant Major Joseph P. Mahoney. Sergeant Major Travis A. Manuel. Sergeant Major Joshua E. Martinez, BALWD. Sergeant Major John W. Mast. Sergeant Major Kimberly Reed, BALWD. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor that we present the graduates of Sergeant Major Course, Class 71. On behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of the NCO Leadership Center of Excellence, the Sergeant Major Course, Class 71, Sergeant Major Reed is presenting a token of appreciation to Dr. James Martin on behalf of Major General Hill. The NCO Leadership Center of Excellence would again like to thank all of our guests, alumni, and community partners for being here today. We would also like to thank the 1st Armored Division Band for yet another great performance. And finally, we would like to thank the Centennial Banquet and Conference Center for allowing us to use this beautiful facility. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the Army song and the departure of the official party. March along, sing a song, we're the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought gloriously fight for the right and to build a nation's might, and the army goes rolling on. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling on. Then it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cannons loud and strong. For where we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling on. The staff and faculty of the NCO Leadership Center of Excellence offer its sincerest congratulations to the graduates of Class 71. Hold on. Everybody, hold on. We wish you all good luck and safe travels. When departing, please use the exits to your right. Thank you, and Ultima Strong.